So Gen 5. Generation 5 is my favorite generation of them all. And the main reason it's my favorite generation of all of the Pokemon games is mainly because of the fact that it has a story, unlike other generations, and the story is actually well done. I guess, should I talk about the gameplay first, or gameplay-wise, it's a Pokemon game. Do I really need to? I mean, you're still collecting Pokemon, you're still leveling them up, you're doing everything you usually do in an RPG. You find items, you give them items, you have potions to heal your Pokemon, you battle other trainers, you battle 8 gym leaders. But the one thing I really like, I talked about how the Gen 3 remakes and Gen 2 gave the characters personality. Generation 5, the whole world, like the whole Unova region has personality. It has backstory. It has mythos. It has legends that are legendaries that actually have legends behind them. Like the Three Musketeer Pokemon, actually, they are based off of the real Three Musketeers. Like they're based off of that, and they have legends about them. And they actually have a 4th member, in quotes, Keldeo. Which, by the way, is voiced by Edward Elric in the Pokemon anime movie. I actually did like that, if only because I do like Vic Mignogna as the voice. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. Regardless, I love that they actually tackled some of the themes that Pokemon realistically never really wanted to touch upon, because we all made the jokes of how, like, Pokemon are essentially animals, is essentially elitalized cockfights. Let's be honest here. That's essentially what Pokemon is. You are a underage poacher, sending these animals that you capture and sending them into legalized cockfights, and for some reason there's friendship involved, because by God, if we made this like actual cockfights, we'd be fucking monsters. We all heard the jokes before. We've all seen how how fucked up the universe actually can be, but they never actually talked about if it was ever right. Pokemon Generation 5 actually did that. They actually tackled, like, well, do we really have a right to actually take Pokemon from their natural habitat and train with them? And that was the main goal behind. They actually based off Team Plasma from hate groups and Christians that said that Pokemon was the devil, which, by the way, is really, really funny, but really, really dark at the same time. But but anyway, what I really love about Generation 5 is what they do with Team Plasma. Team Plasma not only has a motive but a goal, but the members themselves are also interesting. I like that. So this is pretty much spoilers for the game, so if you haven't played the game, go play it now, because it's an awesome game in its own right. I see no reason why you shouldn't play the game, if only for its story. But at the end of the game, you fight N, who is sort of a rival and the one who sort of he's the semi-leader of Team Plasma. He leads the faction that actually wants to liberate Pokemon. He actually wants to free them. And he is connected to Pokemon. He grew up with Pokemon pretty much his entire life. He was sort of secluded from everyone else. But he understands Pokemon. He can sort of understand them better than anyone else can, or at least so he thought, until he meets your character and sees that your character is bonding with Pokemon, even though he essentially is one of these underage poachers. So, what I really like is that N is an interesting character. He starts off as a bit arrogant, and he doesn't really. He thinks that he thinks that all of the everyone, like the gym leaders and people in the Pokemon League and Pokemon trainers, he thinks that he thinks that they're essentially, they're taking them from their natural habitat. He wants to liberate all Pokemon. That is his goal. But over the course of time, he sees how strong your Pokemon are becoming when they're with you, and how strong you're becoming. He sees how you and your Pokemon are bonding over the course of the game, and he realizes not everything is as black and white as it seems. Get it? Black and white? Not everything's as black and white as it. Anyway, I really enjoyed that about his character. I also, just a side note, I like the legendaries like Reshiram and Zekrom. I really like that we actually had a battle with the legendaries. One was about truth and one was about ideals, and I liked how they actually... It was actually... Apparently Zekrom and Reshiram were originally one Pokemon, but they split into two because they both had different ideas of what the world should be like and what... Like, they both have different ideas and different opinions and different thoughts, and because they just weren't agreeing, they separated and they fought together, and they had to be sealed away in order for the world to be safe. I like that side story. That's a good side story. It brings mythos to the world, and they never show us the backstory. It's only told as a legend, and that's really good. It makes the legendaries feel like they're actually legendary. Because one thing that Pokemon also does that annoys me is with some of the mythical Pokemon, some of the legendaries. Like with Mewtwo, okay, Mewtwo's cool, Mew is cool. You know, the birds are essentially based off of Greek, the Greek deities in some sense. That's what I think that's what they tried to go for. And you know, but while Gen 2 is where they sort of kind of started to do this. Suicune, Entei, and Raikou actually have some decent backstory, but Lugia and Ho-Oh have some decent backstory as well. But I will admit that later generations like Gen 3 and Gen 4, they sort of lacked with this. There were a few that they did okay, like Arceus is essentially the god of the Pokemon world. He's essentially God. So, but because of that, they were able to do interesting things with Arceus. Like, I know I'm talking about a spin-off game, but there was a side game, Pokemon Ranger Guardian Signs. One of the last optional missions was where you fought Arceus. And Arceus thought that humanity has gone too far and you know, the world's pretty much gone to shit, so Arceus wants to recreate the world. Arceus is angry. And Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina are essentially Arceus' subjects in some instance. They essentially, one is a ruler of time, another is a ruler of space, another is a ruler of the distortion world, or an alternate dimension. And when it came down to, they all worked with your character in order to calm Arceus down and show people that humanity can actually still live on, and that, you know, the world is not as bad as it seems, and sort of calm him down. It was an interesting side story. I also liked the thing they did in the Sinjo region. That's a stupid name. In Heart Gold Soul Silver, if you had the Arceus from the Hall of Origin in Diamond and Pearl and Platinum, or the Arceus that was a Toys R Us event where it had the main moves of Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina, as well as Judgment, Arceus' signature move. You actually got to see Arceus creating a new Pokemon, a new Giratina, a new Palkia, a new Dialga, which is proof that there is more than one there's more than one of every legendary. With the exception of maybe Mewtwo and Arceus, and maybe Mew, maybe. There's more than one. It's pretty much confirmed by that at this point, which is nice to know. So they did a couple of interesting things with Arceus, but then there's other legendaries like Shaman and Darkrai, which they did interesting things with in Gen 5, but not in his own generation. Cresselia and, you know, the Emotion Trio, just... They had their gimmick, but didn't really... They didn't feel like they were legendary, because I didn't hear any legends based on them. Legendaries just... And not to mention there's so many legendaries. Gen 5 has a lot of legendaries too, but some of the legendaries, with the exception of maybe like Tornadus, Landorus, and... Tornadus, Thundurus, and Landorus, like with the exception of those three, which I'm mixed on, and I hate their designs. I hate their designs. All of the other Pokemon had a legend about them. They had stories told about them. There was 3 Musketeer Pokemon. They had stories about them. They had Victini, and it has a story about, they have a story about Victini. They have a story about Zekrom, Reshiram, and Kyurem, and they had legends about them, and that's what made them feel legendary. That's kind of, if they're legendary Pokemon, where's the legend? I want to hear backstory about them, at least a little bit. But you know, you don't have to show me the backstory, because that kind of takes away from the legend part, because then I know, okay, well then it must have happened then if we're actually seeing it unfold. No, we actually get to hear a story, and it's a legend. No one really knows if it's true or not. but judging by what we know about the world and what the revelations we find out, and how Zekrom and Reshiram are essentially enemies, we get the sense that this may have happened in the past. It makes it feel legendary. It makes it feel big. And I like how that fight was, N and your character essentially have the fight that Reshiram and Zekrom actually have. And that was really interesting. But essentially, you fight N at the end of the game, and you find out that N was lied to by his own father, Gestus, who is the real leader of Team Plasma, and he has his own motives. He essentially wants to liberate Pokemon, so no trainer and no gym leader and nobody in general had any Pokemon, which may seem like a stupid cliche villain plan, but actually think about this. Team Plasma actually thought they were doing the right thing. The members of Team Plasma, even N, actually thought they were doing the right thing, and then they actually realized, well shit, you mean it was just for your plan? It was just to further your own agenda? That is really, really smart writing, and I love that. It gives the Team Plasma grunts actual dimensions. Like, we thought we were... And in Black and White 2, there were actually former Team Plasma members that you actually see in the game, and one of the main characters acts like a dick to them because they're Team Plasma members, and that one of the main characters got hurt by Team Plasma in a previous game. And they were like, dude, I thought we were doing the right thing. It's like, I know we went the wrong way about it, and I don't know what to tell you, but, all I can say is I'm sorry for all it's worth. And I like that. Like, they're cool. They actually help you as well, which is interesting. I like that. I like how they gave the sort of dimension. It actually is very similar to other people that start things, some radical groups, and then, they think they're doing something right. Like, it oddly feels kind of realistic. Like, okay, I know what I'm going to say is a little controversial because it has something to do with politics, but I'm going to talk about Anita Sarkeesian for a bit. Just don't let me speak. Just let me speak. Anita Sarkeesian is so obviously has her own agenda. She really, realistically, I don't think she really even cares about her viewpoints and on feminism and shit like that, and some of the stupid shit that she says. I don't know if that's true or not, but there are people that do follow her. There are people that legitimately follow her because they legitimately believe in her. And considering the fact that she lies so much and how much manipulative shit she does, a part of me just feels like she's just doing it to further her own agenda. And people have said this about her. And say that was outed. Say it was outed somehow. I don't know. It probably hasn't been outed at this point, but no one's gonna believe it. There would be people that their heart would sink if they realized that she was just fluffed it all up. And there are people that actually have started things like that, not necessarily for feminism, but it could be for equality or hate groups or there are things there are those kinds of people that start something, that start this group that think they're trying to do the right thing and go about it the wrong way, and then they find out that the leader, the one who started all that, was a fraud, and the person who thought they were doing the right thing realized that all that shit, it was just to further his own agenda, and that he was actually helping it, and they feel betrayed because of that. That's oddly very realistic. And it's surprising that that was actually in a Pokemon game. So, I know I kind of went off on a tangent there, but it's something that I found interesting in Generation 5. It's something that can actually be parallel to today's world, especially with all of the freaking, with all the radical groups that are out there trying to say, this is offensive, and this is offensive, and this is offensive, when really they're just either doing it to further their own agenda, or they're just stupid. It's not like that's outside the realm of possibilities. So, it's something that I think holds up really well today as well, which, not to say it didn't hold up back then, but it holds up really strongly today. And it gives the characters in the game dimension, because they actually felt like they were doing the right thing. Gestis in general is just kind of an evil dick. I mean, he is he's a fine character, but he is essentially just an evil dick. So we stop him at the end of the day. Fuck his Hydreigon. That asshole is annoying to fight. His Hydreigon like wiped out 3 of my Pokemon. So, and I had a Zekrom with me as well, and it was hard. Though you could argue that's because they nerfed some of the legendaries. Regardless, though, it was a very interesting story, and I loved what they did with Team Plasma. As for the rest of the characters, like Bianca and Sharon, they didn't really do much, but I found them fine characters. Bianca in particular I like more than Sharon, just because Bianca does... I liked her little subplot with her father, and how her father essentially disapproved of her going on an adventure, thinking she couldn't handle it. And I also like the gym leaders as well. With the exception of like 1 or 2 of them, every gym leader had a clear-cut character, a clear personality. And I liked how they all had lives other than just being stuck in a gym the entire time waiting for challengers. Like Elisa was a fashion model. Styla was a pilot. We also had the 3 waiters. They ran a restaurant. They didn't just run a gym leader, they ran a restaurant. One ran the second gym leader, Leora or something like that, she ran a museum, and even those gym leaders move on in Black and White 2, which, just to segue into Black and White 2 a little bit, I like how Black and White 2 was a clear sequel. It wasn't just, like a 3rd version or something like that. No, it was a clear sequel. And it felt like a sequel that, like, I will admit, the ending to Black and White was a bit, it wasn't bad, but it ended abruptly. It felt like a continuation was needed, and it was actually a very good continuation. Gestis returns, and Team Plasma is reformed, but not the Team Plasma that we knew before. This Team Plasma is just a basic team. They're out there for world domination, and they're out there to take people's Pokemon away. They're actually evil. Not to mention they actually do shit that's actually threatening. But what I like about them is that we already went through the stuff with Team Plasma in the first game. It feels... It's very realistic that they would actually come back in this way, because I'm sure there were Team Plasma members who knew about Gestis, who sided with him. So it's like Gestis had his own faction of Team Plasma. But we do get to see former Team Plasma members and how they continue to live on, and have actually, you know, they actually they're trying to fix the world's problems and save Pokemon from people who would do them harm. And they're actually pretty cool guys. We play as a different character, and I was a little disappointed that they didn't do what they did with Red, where they brought back Yu from the previous game. I know it's like, I know they already did that with Gen 2, but I would have liked to seen it in... I would have liked to see it again, just because it would have been cool, but whatever. It was a missed opportunity, but regardless of such, I like how gym leaders have moved on. Like, the 3 waiters are no longer gym leaders. Leora is no longer a gym leader, at least not as far as I know anyway. She still runs the museum, though. You know, all of the other gym leaders are there. Elisa has a new outfit, which I like that it's similar to Styla. We actually get some backstory that Elisa wanted to do something a little bit different, and Styla sort of helped her with that. I like that we got that. There was actually a couple of flashbacks. We got the flashback with Styla and Elisa. We got the flashback with N, where he gave up his Pokemon. We also did a flashback with the waiters and how they moved on, and they're no longer gym leaders. And I like that the world has progressed over the course of 2 years. I like how different the world is. Heck, it almost feels like an entirely new generation. And there's a gym in the first town, and Sharon runs it. Your rival from the first game is now a gym leader, and that feels like something he would do. Bianca is now Professor Juniper's assistant, and that feels like something she would do. I like that. I like that the world has moved on, characters have grown. It feels like there's a good sense of progression. We have a new rival named Hugh, and Hugh is probably my favorite rival in the series that isn't N, I guess, but he's probably my favorite, like, rival, he's like my favorite rival that tackles gym leaders and the Pokemon League and stuff like that. because he really isn't against you. In fact, he actually challenges you because he wants to see you get stronger so he can have help. Hugh is essentially after Team Plasma, because Team Plasma, I believe sometime in the first game, took his sister's Perlian, which is now a life part when he gets it back, which is actually really nice. So he actually, his sister got her Pokemon stolen from her, and he's been after Team Plasma ever since. He's been obsessed with them. He even demands to have a Pokemon from Bianca, as you know, he's not ready to have a Pokemon license. He only gets one because he asked Bianca, "Hey, look, I want a Pokemon." It's like, "I want a Pokemon." It's like, "Oh, okay." And Bianca's just like dumbfounded. It's like, "Sure, here you go." He's kind of like Barry from Diamond and Pearl, where he was hyperactive, but he was hyperactive for the right reasons. He wants to go after Team Plasma. He so desperately wants to make them pay for what they did to him. And a lot of it is selfish. He even goes after the older Team Plasma members just because they were former Team Plasma members, and he thinks it's blasphemous that they will work for such an organization. And I like that. I really, really enjoy that. And he grows throughout the game. I like how the 8th gym leader, who is essentially, he's a surfer dude. I like to say, "Oh, so so you want to go after Team Plasma? Personal vendetta? Okay, so you don't want to help people. Okay, that's cool, man. That's cool." It's essentially what he says. It's like, yeah, you're kind of right. You kind of are a dick. I mean, I understand why you are, but yeah, that is kind of a dick thing to do. And he grows from that. He learns from that. He becomes less of. He grows more humble as the journey goes on. And the reason why he tries to make sure that you're strong is because he wants to have help from you because you're such a strong trainer. And I like that. It's nice to see that, and you know, the old characters have progressed into the supporting, They're sort of supporting characters, but the fact that they're there is nice. Some of the characters aren't a part of the story anymore, but have moved on since then, and that's nice. And the new characters themselves are really interesting, and it continues the plot really well. You know, Team Plasma may not have that interesting aspect that they had in the first game, but they do have some really cool moments. Like, they actually attack a city. They freeze the 7th gym. That when you get the 7th gym badge, they attack the city, the city where you face Drayden, and they attack that city. They freeze the entire thing. I also like how Alder is sort of moved on as well. He's no longer the champion. I think he either got to I don't know if he got beaten by Iris, who was a gym leader in Pokemon White and is now the champion, the true champion. And I like her new design as well. Very over the top. I don't know if Alder stepped down or if he was beaten by Iris. A part of me has to think he was beaten. But I like how Alder has moved on. I like that we actually get to see his son. That was really cool. And we actually get to see some trainers with legendaries for once. Why aren't they the champion? Anyway, but yeah, I really loved the world in Pokemon Black and Pokemon Black and White, Pokemon Black and White 2. I loved the sense of continuity and continuation. They actually make references to the other generations, and they're really good about that. We get to see Sabrina actually be an actress. Like, what? I mean, don't get me wrong, I like seeing that side of her because it gives her more personality. At first I thought she was just an emotionless doll, but later on I figured out, I was like, no, she actually does have personality. That's actually funny. So, it's very, that kind of stuff is charming, and I like that they do that. And I like how we get to see Looker again, him being the incompetent person he usually is. I say he's incompetent because he never really figures out anything. He never really saves the day. We're always the ones that do that, so. Overall, though, I really enjoyed the world and the story, and that's what really stood out to me with Generation 5 over the other generations. So now that I've got done with my thesis paper on why I love the story of Generation 5 so much, I think it's time we actually talk about the gameplay, which there's not much to talk about. It's your standard Pokemon fare, but there are some things I really like that they added, and I'm going to cut the camera off right here because it's about to cut on me, so cut. Alright, I'm back. It cuts after 20 minutes. You may have noticed it. But let's actually talk about the game now. Like, you know, just Black and White 2, despite how much I've been talking about the story, is actually a game. I really enjoy Black and White and Black and White 2 for the things it added. For one thing, Audino grinding. Thank God. Like, I do like the experience share, and I like that in Gen 6 because it saves me time on grinding. I don't like grinding in general. I never do. But Audino grinding, I will admit, is better because it takes just about the same amount of time. And not to mention, it's also, it's efficient, but not too efficient. It's not broken. You can find Audino in just about every single field in the game. And it's not broken, it's not, it doesn't make your Pokemon overpowered, but it does exist. And Audino grinding literally takes like 10 to 30 minutes depending on how under-leveled you are. And since they're so easy to kill, you really have no reason not to use it. Like, yeah, you don't have to use it, and you could argue it's just as, you know, it's just as annoying, but it makes it go by quicker. And that's what I really appreciate. Audino is one of my favorite Pokemon from the generation just because of that. That's something I really appreciated. Another thing I really appreciated was, I like that in Black and White 2, when you used a Max Repel, usually it just ends and you have to go into your bag. This time around, they asked you, hey, you want to use another Max Repel right after one ends? They don't even bring up the bag or anything. You just say yes, and he uses another Max Repel. Thank you! That's such a simple change, and it's something I didn't even know I wanted either, but when I got it, I was just like, oh my god, that is such a good change. So, I also like how, I also like the world. Admittedly, Black and White 1 had the problem of being a little too linear. Like, you pretty much went in, you pretty much started off, like, say, the map starts off here. You pretty much took a couple of turns here, and then afterwards you were going up a line, and then afterwards you were going through half a circle, and then you went up to Victory Road. That's essentially what you go to, and because of that, admittedly, since they wanted to tell a narrative, I think that's why they wanted to have you go this route, because they wanted to tell more of a story with this. It would be better if you do things in a specific order. Black and White 2's narrative is not as flowing as Black and White 1's is. It's still fine, it's just that it's not as straightforward as Black and White 1's is. So because of that, you know, you're not... because of that, it's also a sequel, so it wants to expand on the world. You essentially do the same thing in Black and White 2, but instead of actually going through, like, starting off, like, around a corner of the map and just going into a straight line, like turning and then going into a straight line, they actually go from the other side this time around. We actually get to see the other side of Unova. We actually get to see an island that contains the town you start out in and some new cities and new locations. We also get to see the second half of the circle, I believe, earlier, and we get to go to different pathways. We get to go to another part of Unova later on in the game that contains the 8th gym. We get to see more of Unova, and some of those areas that we get to see sort of what happens in the center of Unova as well. So we get to actually go through new areas essentially. They expanded the world, and I really like that. Black and White 1 sort of had a very linear structure. Like, the second half of the circle was all optional shit. It was very straightforward. I didn't mind it too much, but it was noticeable. Also, one thing Black and White did that I liked and didn't like at the same time was that, on one hand, I liked it because it was refreshing, but on another hand, I didn't like it because the variety for fire types was lacking, to the point where I actually just transferred over a Charizard from my second playthrough from my Heart Gold file. And, I shouldn't have had to do that. Because really, when it came... Black and White 1 uses the new Pokemon, and only the new Pokemon. Black and White 2 actually brings in over, like, 140 40 of the old Pokemon, along with, like, the 150-something new Pokemon that Black and White 1 introduced, which was the largest for any generation. Just another reason to like Black and White. Black and White 2, I love just for how much variety in Pokemon, and X and Y kept that, but Black and White 2 started that tradition where the dex that you have at the start is so humongous. It's the biggest it's the biggest region dex I've ever seen. It has 300 Pokemon, and that's really, really cool. 301 if you count Victini. Anyway, with Black and White, with Black and White, they only use the new Pokemon. With Black and White 1, they only use the new Pokemon, and they use the old Pokemon after you beat a specific, the game. After you beat the game, when you go to the optional areas, that's when you can find some of the older Pokemon. And swarms appear where you can find even more older Pokemon. When it comes to that, I like it because there's some really cool. It got me used to the new Pokemon. I love some of my favorites from that generation was Zekrom, Samurott, Serperior, Krokorok was a really good Pokemon. I like the little orb thing. I forget what it's called. I forget what Ranunculus, I believe it was called. It was the Cell Pokemon. That is a really good Pokemon. It's a good Psychic type. It's slow as hell, but it has Trick Room, which allows the slowest Pokemon to go first. So that's really, really good because of it. And we also have some, the legendaries that I talked about. I love Generation 5's Pokemon. And it's all thanks to Black and White actually making me utilize them because now I'm used to them. Generation 5 is one of my favorite generations when it comes to the new Pokemon. Yeah, some people bitch about how the designs were stupid, and I will agree, not all of them are good. The fucking ice cream Pokemon, God. I love Gen 5, but even I'll admit that was a stupid design. But to be fair, there were stinkers throughout the ages. We always had Snubbull, which looked stupid. We always had Igglybuff and some of the other baby Pokemon that I hated. I never liked Miltank. I hated Whitney's Miltank, but I never liked Miltank. I mean, I got why they made Miltank, because, cow Pokemon, but still, it's where they get milk, but I still don't like it. And Execute, and Magneton is essentially 3 Magnemites. I like Magnezone. Fight me, assholes. I like Magnezone, whether you like it or not. So, a Magnezone is more interesting than Magneton. Not to say I like Magnemite the best out of the 3 because I think it's the most interesting, but Magnezone is more interesting than Magneton. And then there was also Dugtrio, which is 2. There were Pokemon that sucked from a design aspect since the first generation. It always had that problem. So I don't see why it's so big a deal in Generation 5 and even 6. I will not deny that they are starting to run out of ideas, but Generation 5 I think had some really, when they had a really good design, they had some really good designs. Zoroark and Zorua was also a Pokemon I really enjoyed. And I love everything, I love all the new Pokemon, and it's because I got used to the new Pokemon, thanks to Black and White, that I appreciate them as much as I did. And then there were some just designs I loved from the get-go, like Samurott and Braviary and Zoroark. Some that I just loved right from the get-go. It was just some of the early Pokemon, like the Ice Cream Pokemon and the Garbodor. Oh, the garbage Pokemon. Those designs were dumb. I'll agree with you there. But when they had a good design, they had a really, really damn good design. The Pokemon variety itself, though, my problem was that fire types were lacking. You had Emboar, which... I do like the starters, but even I'll admit, I don't like the Tepig line. Mostly because it's another firefighting, and considering how many new things Generation 5 brought us, I don't understand why they decided to have that firefighting type. We had that in Gen 3 with Blaziken, and we had it with Gen 4 with Infernape. It got really old after a while. Thankfully, Fennekin was a fire psychic, which I think was a much better choice. So anyway, we had Emboar, we had Darmanitan, which I don't like Darmanitan. I don't mind the design. I think the design is fine. It's just I don't like using a Darmanitan. Design-wise, I like it. I actually think it's kind of a funny-looking Pokemon, but in a good way. And it looks. I like it. I like the design. I hate the design of the Zen mode, but I like the main design of its main form. I just don't like using it because its moveset kind of sucks. At least in my opinion, it does. I don't know, maybe it's like Uber tier and like overpowered tier, and I have no idea how good it is, but I didn't find a use for it. Really, the only great fire type was Chandelier, which I really like. I know it's a Chandelier Pokemon, but I love that it's a ghost and fire type, and it looks cool. So it looks legitimately like a ghost I don't know what it is, but you know, when they try and use something for try and use a chandelier for some kind of living creature, like the ballroom, like with the ballroom, they made a reaction command out of the chandelier, and they actually made the ballroom a boss fight, and the chandelier was the main way to take it out. That was cool in Kingdom Hearts 2, and then they have a chandelier Pokemon, and that's really cool in Pokemon. What is it with chandeliers? But anyway, Chandelure is a really cool Pokemon. It's just that you have to get a Dust Stone in order to evolve it, and its forms before that point aren't that good. And the moveset's really good. The Pokemon itself is really good, but it's so annoying to get that I just transferred over a Charizard. So it was just one of those things I was just like, no, fuck this, I'm not doing that. So, but that's really the only issue I have. My first playthrough, I used a Victini because the Victini event happened at the start of the game. Overall, though, that's really my only major gripe with it. Everything else about Black and White, honestly, Black and White and Black and White 2 fixed pretty much all of the problems I had. Grinding was fixed. Variety in Black and White 2 was fixed, that's for sure. There were like 3 fire types that were useful and 4 electric types that were useful, and every type had a good enough variety, and there were so many Pokemon and so many. There was so much variety that really you could customize your team in almost any way. You know, you had limitations, obviously, but those limitations were so few and far between. I love the versatility in Pokemon that you muster up. I love what teams you could create. That's something I love about X and Y as well. Black and White 2 started that, and I really appreciated it for it. And I like that. That's something that I really like about Generation 5, is that they fixed so many previous issues. The story was more interesting. They did a lot of new things with it. They had interesting characters. They did so many things right. And Generation 5 is my highlight of the series, and probably will still be my highlight. I have so many memories of hanging out with friends playing that as well. Not as many as Heart Gold Soul Silver, but I still had friends playing those games, and I had so many memories, and I love how fast the battles are as well, because the interface was cleaned up a bit, and it used a different cartridge. If you actually like have Soul Silver in one hand and Pokemon White in another hand, just an example, you can tell how much heavier the cartridges are. I think because they used a much bigger cartridge this time around and had much more space because of it, they were able to make the battle interface much faster. They fixed the problem from Gen 4. They fixed so many issues, and I love that. And Generation 5 is my favorite generation because of that. It's interesting. Even if you're not a fan of Pokemon, I'd recommend Black and White and Black and White 2, because they have an interesting story on their own right. And even if the games are technically, yes, outdated because the newer games are out, I still think they're worth playing because of their story, which gives them more replayability and makes them last longer. It's always fun to experience their world again. And I had no problems going back to Black and White 2 when I played it again. So, yeah, Black and White 2, it's my favorite generation, and Black and White 1 as well. Generation 5, it's my favorite generation, so. And then Generation 6 had to shoot themselves in the foot.